Imagine being just 6 years old and already wearing a crown. You don't understand politics. You barely know how to write your name, and yet powerful men declare you a queen and send you to a foreign kingdom. That was the fate of Isabella of Valois. Dressed in gold, surrounded by strangers, and married to a man more than 4 times her age, Isabella became a symbol of peace between 2 warring nations. But her peace would not last. By the time she was 10, she was already a widow, and by 19, she was dead. No statues, no legacy, just a forgotten child, caught in the brutal games of royal diplomacy. In medieval Europe, marriage was not about love, it was about power. Kings and queens used their children to make peace or gain land. A marriage could stop a war or join 2 kingdoms together. Young children, especially girls, were often married off for these reasons. The younger they were, the more control the adults had over them. Royal daughters were seen as tools, not people. Some were promised in marriage before they could even talk. These weddings were more about politics than feelings. The church allowed children to marry, as long as they didn't live as husband and wife right away. So a little girl could wear a crown and be called queen, even if she was still playing with toys in private. During the long war between England and France, child marriages were used to try and bring peace. People believed an innocent young bride could help stop the fighting. Isabella of Valois was one of those girls. At just 6 years old, she was married to the King of England, not because she wanted to, but because the world saw her as useful. Isabella of Valois was born in 1389 in France. She was the daughter of King Charles VI, who was sometimes called Charles the Mad, because of his mental illness. Her mother, Queen Isabeau of Bavaria, helped run the country when the king was too sick to rule. From the moment Isabella was born, she was important, not because of who she was, but because of who her parents were. She was a princess of France, and that made her a valuable piece in the game of royal politics. When Isabella was just 6 years old, the leaders of France and England made a deal. She would marry the King of England, Richard II. This marriage was supposed to bring peace between the 2 countries, who had been at war for years. Richard II was over 30 years old, more than 5 times Isabella's age, but no one asked what Isabella wanted. She was sent across the sea to marry a man she had never met, in a land far from home. To the kings and lords, she was not a little girl. She was a symbol of peace. But in truth, she was just a scared child, caught in a world of power and politics. Isabella's wedding took place in October 1396. She had just turned 6 years old. The ceremony happened in Calais, still under English control, and was filled with gold, music, and powerful guests from both countries. It looked like a celebration. But for Isabella, it was the start of a life she didn't choose. She stood beside a man she barely knew, King Richard II of England, almost 5 times her age. The wedding was meant to bring peace between England and France. People smiled, diplomats shook hands, but Isabella likely didn't understand why she was there. After the wedding, Isabella didn't go to live with Richard. She was too young. Instead, she was sent to live in a royal household in England, where noblewomen cared for her and taught her court manners, language, and religion. She had royal titles and fine clothes, but no freedom. Letters show she missed her family and felt alone. To the outside world, she was Queen of England. But behind closed doors, she was a homesick child with no control over her future. Her wedding wasn't about love or joy. It was about peace between kings, paid for with a little girl's life. After her wedding, Isabella stayed in England while King Richard continued to rule. She didn't live with him. She was still a child, but she was now the Queen of England. She was given a royal home, fine dresses, and servants. Her new home was safe and well guarded, but also very lonely. She didn't speak English yet. The people around her were strangers. Her real family was far away in France. Isabella's daily life was full of rules. She had to learn how to sit, speak, and behave like a queen. Noble women took care of her and taught her English and religion. She also had to appear in public sometimes, dressed in royal clothes, to remind people that peace with France was in place. Richard visited her sometimes and was said to treat her gently. He brought her gifts and seemed to care about her well-being. But Isabella was still a little girl, living far from home, surrounded by adults who made decisions for her. Though her title was queen, her life felt more like a quiet prison, controlled, watched, and filled with duties she didn't understand. In 1399, Isabella's world changed forever. King Richard II, her husband, was removed from the throne by his cousin, Henry Bolingbroke. Richard was arrested, taken away, and later died in prison. Some believe he was murdered. Isabella was only 10 years old when she became a widow. She didn't see Richard again after his arrest. No one explained what was happening. One day she was Queen of England, the next she was nothing. The new king, Henry IV, saw Isabella as a problem. She was the daughter of France's royal family, and her marriage had linked the two countries. Now that peace was broken, she was no longer useful. Henry IV offered to marry Isabella to his own son, the young Prince Henry, but she refused. Even at 10 years old, Isabella said no. She had already lost her home, her crown, and her safety. She would not lose her dignity. For a while, she was kept under close watch in the royal court. But after long talks between England and France, she was finally allowed to return home in 1401. Her time as queen was over. She returned to France not as a royal bride, but as a forgotten child. When Isabella returned to France in 1401, she was still only 11 years old, but already a widow. Her country welcomed her back with kindness, but she was no longer the hopeful girl sent to bring peace. She had seen betrayal, loss, and loneliness. For a few quiet years, Isabella lived with her family, but peace didn't last. At age 16, she was forced into marriage again, this time to her cousin, Charles, Duke of Orléans. He was only 11. Just like before, the marriage wasn't about love. It was meant to join two powerful French families. This second marriage brought no crown, no excitement, and no freedom. Isabella faded into the background of royal life. She had no real power and very little happiness. Only a few years later, in 1409, Isabella died suddenly. She was just 19 years old. There was no grand funeral, no great statue, and no royal children to carry on her name. Her story was quietly closed, and history moved on. A queen at 6, a widow at 10, buried before 20. Isabella's life was short, quiet, and used by others. A reminder of how cruel royal life could be for a young girl. Isabella of Valois disappeared from history for one simple reason. She left behind no power, no heirs, and no war. She didn't start a rebellion or rule a country. She didn't write letters or lead armies. She was used, moved, and ignored. And when she died, there was no one to protect her memory. History often remembers loud voices, great victories, and famous names. But girls like Isabella, quiet, young, and powerless, were rarely written about. And when they were, it was only as someone's wife or daughter. Her portraits were lost, her name left out of stories. Over time, she became a ghost in royal records. But just because she was forgotten doesn't mean she didn't matter. Isabella's life shows us how power can shape and destroy a childhood. She was given a crown before she understood what it meant. Her life was never her own. Every choice was made for her, by kings, by politics, by war. And yet, even in silence, her story teaches us something important. It reminds us that history isn't only about heroes and battles. It's also about the children caught in the middle, the ones used, forgotten, and erased. Isabella's voice was quiet, but it still matters. By remembering her, we remember all the others like her. Girls with no choices, no freedom, and no happy ending. They were not weak. They were ignored. She was crowned a queen at 6, widowed at 10, and buried before she turned 20. No armies followed her. No great books were written about her. And yet, Isabella of Valois lived a life shaped by power, war, and duty, all before she had the chance to grow up. Her story was almost lost to time. But now, we remember her for what she truly was: a forgotten queen, a stolen childhood, and a symbol of silent strength. If you want to hear more true stories like this, of hidden lives and lost voices, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel.